I smiled and nodded as my mother-in-law Maeve explained, for the third time tonight, why my art degree was such a waste. The crystal wine glasses clinked, the chandelier sparkled, and my carefully prepared duck à l'orange sat growing cold while she dominated our family dinner conversation. My name is Gianna, and I've spent the last 5 years perfecting the art of looking interested while screaming internally. I mean, really, Maeve continued, gesturing with her fork. Now that Levi's been promoted to senior manager, it's time to think about your proper role as his wife. Those little drawings of yours were a cute hobby, but— Mother, Levi interrupted, reaching for the wine bottle. Gianna's actually sold quite a few pieces online. I caught his tone, the same one you'd use to praise a child's finger painting. 5 years ago, it would have stung. Tonight, I just took another sip of wine and thought about the contract sitting in my studio drawer upstairs. Online? Maeve's perfectly plucked eyebrows arched. Oh, darling, that's not a real career. When I was starting out with Stanley, I knew my place. A wife's duty is to support her husband, create a proper home. Stanley, my father-in-law, suddenly became very interested in his green beans. Speaking of proper homes, Savannah, my sister-in-law, chimed in. Did you see the new Williams-Sonoma catalogue? Their whole spring collection is gorgeous. If she only knew. Actually, I said softly, I've been thinking about— Oh, that reminds me, Maeve cut in. Levi, dear, tell everyone about your new office. Corner view of downtown, isn't it? I watched my husband straighten up, chest puffing slightly. It's pretty impressive. Floor-to-ceiling windows, private bathroom. They're even letting me hire 2 new team members. That's wonderful, son, Maeve beamed. Now that's a real career. Gianna, honey, you must be so proud. Absolutely bursting, I replied, stabbing a baby carrot. Later that night, after the dishes were cleared and the family had left, Levi cornered me in the kitchen. Mum's right, you know. With this promotion, we can finally start thinking about starting a family. I dried a wineglass carefully. Oh? Come on, G. You can't keep playing around with art forever. We need to grow up, be responsible. He wrapped his arms around my waist from behind. I make more than enough now. You don't have to worry about income anymore. I turned in his embrace, studying his face. Handsome, confident, completely clueless. You're right, I said. Things are about to change. He kissed my forehead. I knew you'd understand. Mum will be thrilled. After he went upstairs, I slipped into my studio. The space Maeve constantly suggested we convert into something useful. I pulled out the contract from my drawer, running my fingers over the embossed letterhead of the largest home decor company in North America. My phone buzzed, a text from Alexandra. Did you tell them? Not yet, I typed back. Let them think what they want for now. Another buzz. Girl, you're killing me. That licensing deal is huge. You're about to be everywhere. I smiled, thinking about Maeve's Williams-Sonoma comment, about Levi's dismissive tone, about 5 years of cute hobby comments and proper wife lectures. The contract specified everything, my artwork on their full spring collection, bedding, wallpaper, furniture, accessories, my name, my real name, Gianna Franklin, would be on every piece. The advance alone was more than Levi's yearly salary. They have no idea what I've done, I whispered to the empty studio. My phone buzzed again. Maeve, darling, I'm sending you information about this wonderful cooking class. Perfect for a new corporate wife. Also, when can we start looking at paint samples for the nursery? That studio space has such potential. I left her on read and opened my laptop instead. The final mock-ups for the collection glowed on my screen. My designs transformed into luxury items for the very stores Maeve worshipped. In 3 months, my art would be in every high-end home decor shop in the country. But tonight, I was just the quiet corporate wife with the wasteful art degree. I closed my laptop, tucked the contract away, and headed upstairs to my oblivious husband. Let them think I'm giving up. Let them believe I'm finally accepting my proper role. The best revenge, after all, isn't served cold. It's served on designer pillowcases in the spring collection. Remember when your art wasn't good enough for grad school? Alexandra asked, sliding a coffee across her kitchen counter to me. Now look at these numbers. Her laptop displayed our company's latest analytics. The growth curve looked like a mountain range. Maeve asked me yesterday if I'd considered becoming a real estate agent, I said, laughing. You know, a proper career for a corporate wife. While you're secretly running an empire from your laptop. Alexandra shook her head. How's the collection coming? I pulled out my tablet, showing her the latest designs. The home office line launches first, then bedroom, kitchen. My phone buzzed. Maeve again. Darling, I've taken the liberty of signing you up for that cooking course. Starts Tuesday at 6. Levi's so excited. I showed Alexandra the text. She rolled her eyes. Does she realise it's 2024, not 1954? According to her, a woman's place is wherever her husband's career needs her to be. I typed back a non-committal, "Thanks for thinking of me," with just enough exclamation points to sound grateful. Speaking of your husband, Alexandra said, how's he handling your cute little online shop? He thinks I make pocket money selling prints on Etsy. I sipped my coffee. He has no idea about the licensing deal, the corporate contracts, none of it. And the separate bank account? Still growing. Every time I think about telling him the truth, I remember his face when I got my MFA. At least you'll have something to decorate our house with, he said. Alexandra's phone pinged. Holy shit, G, look at this. She held up her phone, showing the latest home decor magazine. There, spread across 2 glossy pages, was my artwork. The article praised the mysterious rising star Gianna Franklin and her revolutionary approach to modern design. Your mother-in-law subscribes to this magazine, doesn't she? Oh yes, I smiled. She left it open on my coffee table last week, pointing out designs I should aspire to. Didn't even realise she was looking at my work. The doorbell rang. Alexandra checked her security camera. Speaking of the devil, Gianna, are you here, dear? Maeve's voice carried through the door. Your car's outside. I grabbed my bag. Back door? Like old times, Alexandra winked. Go, I'll tell her you just left. I slipped out through Alexandra's garden gate just as I heard her opening the front door. Oh, Maeve, what a surprise! Gianna, you just missed her. 20 minutes later, I was in my studio when Maeve burst in, Levi trailing behind her. There you are, I've been looking everywhere. She was carrying paint swatches and nursery catalogues. I thought we could start planning the conversion today. Conversion? I asked, carefully closing my laptop. The studio, dear. Now that Levi's promotion is official, you'll need proper space for the baby. Mum's right, Levi added. Time to pack up the art supplies. I looked around my studio, my sanctuary, my secret headquarters, and thought about the 7-figure deal I'd negotiated from this very desk. Actually, I said slowly, I have a show coming up, just a small local gallery, I added quickly, seeing Maeve's face. I need the space for a few more months. A show? Maeve's laugh could have frosted glass. Oh, sweetie, Levi, tell her. Gee, come on, we talked about this. Real life is calling. I stood up, walking to my latest canvas. Just let me finish this collection, please. Maeve sighed dramatically. If you insist on prolonging this phase, but really, Gianna, at some point you need to... She stopped, staring at the magazine on my desk. Wait, this piece... My heart stopped. It was the magazine with my work. This looks exactly like your style, she said, frowning. I held my breath. Someone must be copying you, she concluded. See, this is why you need to give up this hobby. People will just steal your ideas anyway. Levi peered at the magazine, Hey, yeah, weird coincidence. I bit back a laugh. You're right. Totally weird. After they left, I texted Alexandra. Just dodged a bullet, but also got front row seats to watch them completely miss the point. She replied instantly, The best disguise is their own assumptions. When's the big reveal? I looked at my calendar, at the circled date of the collection launch. Soon, I typed back. Very soon. The magazine sat open on my desk, my name right there in black and white, hiding in plain sight from the people who thought they knew me best. The numbers are incredible, Gianna, Zachary said, sliding the sales projections across the conference table. Pre-orders alone have exceeded our expectations. I sat in the sleek downtown office, trying not to fidget in my designer suit, such a far cry from my usual studio attire. Jessie, the rising interior designer they'd chosen as the face of the campaign, practically bounced in her chair. Your work is going to revolutionize modern home decor, she gushed. I can't wait for the launch party. My phone buzzed. Levi, don't forget the corporate gala tonight. Mum's bringing over a dress she picked out for you. Be home by 4. Everything okay? Zachary asked. Perfect, I smiled, tucking my phone away. Just family stuff. Speaking of family, Jessie leaned forward. Are they excited about the launch? This is huge. I caught Zachary's eye. He knew the truth. It had come up during contract negotiations. They're not exactly in the loop yet. Jessie's jaw dropped. But this is a multi-million-dollar deal. How do you keep something like this secret? You'd be surprised how easy it is when people don't bother to look, I said. Back home, Maeve was waiting with a red cocktail dress that probably cost more than my first car. Finally, we need to hurry. The gala starts at 7 and you need serious work. She steered me toward the bathroom. I brought my makeup artist. 2 hours later, I stood in front of the mirror, transformed into Maeve's version of the perfect corporate wife. The dress was tight, the makeup flawless, the hair swept up exactly as she'd instructed. Now you look appropriate, she nodded approvingly. Levi will be so proud. The gala was exactly what you'd expect. Crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, men in expensive suits congratulating themselves. I played my part, smiling and nodding as Levi paraded me around. And this is my wife, he'd say, like I was another acquisition from his promotion. She's an artist, Maeve would add quickly, with that particular tone that meant, but don't worry, we're working on fixing that. I was at the bar getting another champagne when I heard a familiar voice. Oh my God, Gianna, is that really you? I turned to find Jessie, radiant in a blue gown. Before I could stop her, she rushed over. I can't believe you're here. I was just telling everyone about the collection. The Gianna Franklin line is going to be everywhere. I saw Maeve freeze mid-conversation nearby. Levi turned, frowning. Franklin? He asked. What's she talking about? Jessie, oblivious to the tension, continued excitedly. The spring collection! I'm the face of the campaign. Your wife's designs are absolutely brilliant. The way she's revolutionizing modern home decor. The champagne fountain bubbled in the silence that followed. There must be some mistake, Maeve said smoothly, materializing at my side. Gianna just does little sketches. Nothing professional. Jessie blinked. Little sketches? She's the most sought-after designer in the industry right now. The licensing deal alone is worth... Excuse us, I cut in, grabbing Jessie's arm. I need to powder my nose. In the ladies' room, I explained quickly. Jessie's eyes got wider and wider. Oh God, I'm so sorry. I had no idea they didn't know. She paused. But why don't they know? Through the door, I could hear Maeve's voice rising. This is completely unacceptable. What will people think? Because of that, I said, ready to help me make a dramatic exit. Jessie grinned. Lead the way. We swept past my shell-shocked family. Jessie loudly discussing launch dates and magazine covers. I caught fragments of Maeve's horrified whispers. Humiliating the family. What about Levi's reputation? This childish rebellion. At the entrance, Jessie hugged me goodbye. See you at the launch party. What launch party? Levi demanded, finally catching up. I turned to face my husband and his mother, both red-faced and flustered. The one celebrating my new collection. You know, from my little sketches. I smiled sweetly. Don't worry, you'll all get invitations. This is not happening, Maeve declared. You will cancel whatever this is immediately. Actually, I said, checking my phone for the Uber I'd secretly ordered, I have a morning meeting with the marketing team. We're finalising the billboard designs. Billboards? Levi choked. Oh yes, I said as my car arrived. They'll be up next week all over downtown, right near your new corner office, I believe. I left them standing there, Maeve clutching her pearls, Levi staring after me like he'd never seen me before. Alexandra's text was waiting. How'd it go? Better than I could have planned, I replied. The bomb has dropped. Now we wait for the fallout. The silence in our house lasted exactly 14 hours before Maeve burst through the front door without knocking. I was in the kitchen, calmly sipping coffee and reviewing proofs from the photo shoot. Do you have any idea what you've done? She slammed her designer purse on my counter. Patricia from the country club just called. She saw your name in Home and Design magazine. Did she like the article? I asked, sliding another proof sheet into my portfolio. This isn't funny, Gianna. Do you know how this makes us look? How it makes Levi look? Successful, I suggested. Accomplished. Like he can't control his wife. She pressed her fingers to her temples. I had to lie to everyone, said it was just some small local thing you'd lucked into. I closed my laptop slowly. Lucked into? The collection's been in development for 2 years. The contracts took months to negotiate. There was nothing lucky about it. Contracts? Levi appeared in the doorway, still in his suit from work. What contracts? I pulled the licensing agreement from my bag and placed it on the counter. Would you like to see the numbers? Maeve snatched it up before he could reach it. Her face went pale as she read. This is obscene, she whispered. More than Levi makes in 5 years, I finished for her. Give or take. Levi grabbed the contract from his mother. I watched his eyes scan the pages, landing on the compensation details. His face turned an interesting shade of red. This has to stop, he said finally. We need to put this on hold. Excuse me? It's too much, too fast. We haven't discussed this. I haven't approved. Approved? I laughed. I wasn't aware I needed your approval to be successful. That's not what I meant, he backpedaled. But this affects both of us. My position at the firm will look even better, I cut in. Think about it. Your wife's a successful entrepreneur. It's a power couple narrative. Unless, Maeve interjected, people start wondering why he didn't know about it, why his own wife went behind his back. Behind his back? I stood up. I've been working in plain sight for years. You both just decided my art was worthless without ever bothering to look. We were trying to protect you, Maeve insisted. The art world is brutal. We didn't want you to get hurt when it inevitably failed. How thoughtful, I said, my voice dripping honey. And now that it hasn't failed? Now you need to be reasonable, Levi said. Put things on pause. We can revisit this after we start our family. No? The word hung in the air between us. What did you say? Maeve demanded. Oh, I said no. The collection launches in 3 weeks. The billboards go up Monday. The magazine features are already in print. You're being selfish, Levi snapped. This isn't just about you anymore. You're right, I agreed. It's about every time you dismiss my work, every time you called it a hobby, every time you plan my future without consulting me. We were trying to help you grow up, Maeve's voice rose, to become a proper wife. No, I said quietly, you were trying to make me disappear. Later that night, after they'd finally left, I found Levi in his home office, staring at our banking app. "When did you open a separate account?" he asked without looking up. 2 years ago. There's 6 figures in here. 7, actually. That's just the advance." He finally looked at me, and for the first time I saw fear in his eyes, not of me, but of what he'd missed, what he'd dismissed. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. "Would you have listened?" He had no answer for that. My phone buzzed, Alexandra sending the final billboard mock-up for approval. The design was simple, my most popular piece as the background, my name in elegant script across the centre. "Last chance to change anything," her message read. "It's perfect," I replied. "Let them think I'm wasting my time for 1 more week." Levi was still staring at the banking app when I went to bed. I heard him call his mother, their whispered conversation drifting up the stairs. "Can't just let her. Need to do something. Getting out of control." I smiled in the darkness of our bedroom, thinking of the billboards that would soon tower over downtown, of the magazine features about to hit newsstands, of the collection about to launch in every major home decor store in the country. Let them plot, let them worry, let them try to stuff me back into their neat little box. I was done being the quiet corporate wife with the cute little hobby. I was about to become unavoidable. "The billboards look amazing," Jessie squealed, showing me photos on her phone. "I drove past 3 on my way here." We sat in Zachary's office, finalising details for the launch party. The marketing team buzzed around us, discussing social media strategies and influencer partnerships. My phone lit up with a text from Savannah. "Mum's telling everyone you're having a mental breakdown. Says you're acting out because of hormone treatments. What's going on?" "Your mother-in-law's quite creative," Zachary remarked, glancing at my phone. "Hormone treatments?" Apparently, that's easier to explain than my success. I typed back to Savannah. "Ask her which sounds more unstable, building a business or making up lies about your daughter-in-law." "Speaking of family drama," Jessie said, "have you seen the RSVPs for the launch?" I pulled up the list. There, among the celebrity designers and magazine editors, were 4 names I knew too well: Levi, Maeve, Stanley, and Savannah. "They actually RSVP'd, yes." Jessie looked shocked. "Of course they did," I smiled. "They have to maintain appearances." Another text from Savannah. "Just saw your work at Maxwell's boutique. Holy shit, why didn't you tell me?" "Would you have believed me?" I replied. The response came quickly. "Probably not. Mum's been persuasive, but this is incredible." "Meeting in 5, called the PR director, interrupting my reply. We gathered around the conference table as they unveiled the campaign's centerpiece, a massive digital billboard design for Times Square. My artwork animated beautifully across the screen, my name glowing above the city. My phone buzzed again. Levi this time. "We need to talk. Coming home early." I found him in the kitchen when I returned, staring at his laptop. "Care to explain this?" He turned the screen toward me. It showed our local news website. Local artist becomes design industry's rising star. Looks pretty self-explanatory to me. The article mentions 7-figure deals, Gianna. 7 figures! His voice cracked. "Do you know what this makes me look like?" "Successful?" I suggested. "Having a wealthy, accomplished wife usually helps a man's image. Not when she's gone behind his back." He slammed the laptop shut. "I had to hear about your Times Square billboard from my boss, Gianna. Would you have supported it if I'd told you? That's not the point." "Actually, it's exactly the point." I set my bag down. "When's the last time you asked about my work? Really asked, not just nodded and called it cute?" He fell silent. "Your mother's telling people I'm mentally ill," I continued, "that I'm on hormone treatments, anything to avoid admitting I might actually be good at what I do. She's just trying to protect the family name. By destroying mine." My phone chimed with an email notification. the final guest list for the launch party. "The party's next week," I said. "You're all still welcome to come, but not as my keepers, as guests." "Guests?" He laughed bitterly. "I'm your husband." "Are you? Because lately you felt more like my manager, and I never hired you for that position." The doorbell rang. Maeve's voice carried through. "Levi, are you here? We need to discuss damage control." "Don't answer it," I said, but he was already moving. Maeve burst in, clutching her iPad. "Have you seen what she's done now? Times Square, Levi. Everyone's talking about it at the club." "I know, Mother. We need to get ahead of this. I've called Dr. Reynolds about stress management counselling." "I don't need counselling," I interrupted. "I need you both to understand that this is happening, with or without your approval." "This isn't about approval," Maeve snapped. "This is about duty, responsibility. What about Levi's reputation?" "What about mine?" My phone buzzed again. "Alexandra, girl, you're trending. The Times Square reveal video has gone viral." Maeve's iPad pinged with the same notification. She went pale. We can't, she sputtered. "Can't what?" I asked quietly. "Can't handle that I'm successful? Can't control the narrative anymore?" "Can't let you destroy everything we've built," she finished. "Everything you've built," I corrected. "I've been building something too. You just never bothered to notice." I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" Levi demanded. "To my studio. I have a launch party to prepare for." I paused in the doorway. "By the way, the dress code is creative black tie. Try to keep up." I left them standing in my kitchen, Maeve clutching her iPad, Levi looking lost in his own home. The Times Square billboard would be live in 3 days. The launch party was in 7. And I was done playing small. "You're sabotaging me!" Levi stormed into my studio the morning of the launch. "My biggest presentation of the year, and all anyone can talk about is your Times Square billboard." I didn't look up from my laptop, where I was reviewing the final launch details. "Sounds like your presentation has a built-in conversation starter. The CEO asked me if I was riding my wife's coattails. My own boss, Gianna." "And what did you say?" He ran his hands through his hair. "I told him there must be some misunderstanding, that we were handling it." "Handling it?" Now I looked up, like a problem. "You know what I mean. This timing is deliberate. You're trying to humiliate me." My phone buzzed. "Maeve, cancel this ridiculous party now. The country club is in an uproar. I've had to leave the bridge tournament early." "Oh, the humanity," I muttered, then addressed Levi. "The launch date was set months ago. Your presentation timing isn't my responsibility." "Everything you do reflects on me." "Funny," I said, standing up. "I don't remember that rule applying when you told everyone my art degree was worthless." The studio door burst open again. Maeve, still in her tennis whites, brandished her phone like a weapon. "Do you know what Patricia just sent me? Your billboard is all over social media. Gay Gianna Franklin is trending." "I know," I smiled. "The PR team's thrilled." "PR team?" Levi choked. "You have a PR team?" "And a legal team, and an agent, and a 7-figure licensing deal." I checked my watch. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a launch party to prepare for." "You will not attend that party," Maeve declared. "We're having a private family dinner instead. I've already called everyone." I laughed. "Actually, that works perfectly. Bring them all to this address at 7. I handed her a card. "Dress formally." "What are you planning?" Levi asked suspiciously. "Just dinner," I said innocently, "like Maeve wants." After they left, I called Alexandra. "They took the bait. Is everything ready?" "The gallery looks incredible. Wait until they see the video presentation." The hours ticked by. At 6:30, I stood in the gallery's private showroom, surrounded by my collection. Every wall displayed my work. Every piece of furniture bore my designs. In the centre, A massive screen waited to play the promotional video announcing the $2.7 million deal. "They're here," Jessie texted. "Maeve's wearing pearls. This is going to be good." I heard them before I saw them. Maeve's voice echoed through the gallery. "This isn't the restaurant. Gianna, what is the meaning of—" They rounded the corner and stopped dead. Levi, Maeve, Stanley, Savannah, all dressed for dinner, all staring open-mouthed at the exhibition. "Welcome to dinner," I said softly. Or more accurately, welcome to my launch party. "What is all this?" Maeve whispered, turning slowly to take in the room. "This," I gestured around, "is my cute little hobby." The screen flickered to life. My artwork animated across it, followed by the licensing details, the numbers, the projections, the international distribution plans. $2.7 million? Stanley spoke for the first time in what felt like years. "That's the licensing deal." "Initial deal," I corrected. "There's a 3-year contract with extension options." Maeve grabbed a nearby chair for support. "This isn't possible. You're just... Just what, Maeve? Just the quiet corporate wife? Just the girl with the wasteful art degree?" Levi stepped forward. "Guy, we can talk about this. Figure something out." "There's nothing to figure out," I interrupted. "The deals are signed. The collection launches tonight. In about 20 minutes, this room will be full of industry leaders, magazine editors, and social media influencers." "You can't do this to us," Maeve's voice rose hysterically. "Do what? Succeed?" "We humiliate us like this after everything we've done for you." Savannah suddenly laughed. "Oh my God, Mom, listen to yourself. Look around. Gianna's not humiliating anyone. She's crushing it." The first guests began arriving, their excited chatter floating in from the main gallery. "You have 2 choices," I told my family. "You can leave now and try to explain your absence to everyone who matters in this industry. Or you can stay, smile, and finally acknowledge that I'm not just Levi's wife with a hobby." Maeve straightened her pearls, eyes darting between the arriving guests and the damning numbers on the screen. "Well," I asked, "what's it going to be?" The launch party was about to begin, and with it, everything would change. I watched them squirm, caught between their pride and their desperate need to maintain appearances. The choice was theirs, but for once, the power was all mine. The launch party exploded into full swing. Photographers snapped pictures, influencers went live on Instagram, and magazine editors circled the room taking notes. Through it all, I watched Maeve and Levi attempt to maintain their composure. "Gianna, darling," a well-known design blogger air-kissed my cheeks. "Your work is revolutionary. How does your family feel about your meteoric rise?" Maeve materialized beside me, pearls gleaming. "We're absolutely thrilled," she gushed. "We always knew she had such potential." I smiled sweetly. "Did you tell them about the cooking classes you signed me up for last week?" The blogger's perfectly penciled eyebrows shot up. "Oh, that was just—" Maeve faltered. "Family joke, of course." Of course," I agreed. "Just like suggesting my studio should become a nursery was a joke, right?" The blogger's phone was already out, fingers flying across the screen. Maeve grabbed my arm, nails digging in. "Stop this immediately." "Stop what? Telling the truth?" Across the room, Levi was cornered by his CEO, who'd shown up unexpectedly. "Your wife's quite the powerhouse," I overheard the CEO say. "Why didn't you mention any of this during your presentation?" Well, Levi stammered, "it's complicated." "Doesn't seem complicated to me," the CEO continued. "She's built an empire right under your nose. That's the kind of initiative we value at the firm." Zachary clinked a glass for attention. Time for my speech. I took the microphone, scanning the packed gallery. "Thank you all for coming tonight. This collection represents more than just designs on fabric and furniture. It represents every person who's ever been told their dreams were impractical, their passions were hobbies, their ambitions were selfish. Maeve's face went rigid. I'd like to thank my amazing friend Alexandra, who believed in me when others suggested real estate classes might be a better use of my time. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Alexandra raised her glass from the corner, grinning. I'd like to thank Zachary and the whole team for seeing the value in my work, even when those closest to me dismissed it as cute little drawings. Levi shifted uncomfortably. And finally, I continued, I'd like to thank my mother-in-law, who just last week told me it was time to grow up and accept my proper role as a corporate wife. The room went dead silent, because without that constant undermining, without those years of condescension, I might not have worked quite so hard to prove exactly what a woman with a wasteful art degree can accomplish. The crowd erupted in applause. I saw several phones recording, knew this would be viral before midnight. To everyone who's ever been underestimated, I raised my glass. This is what revenge looks like when you succeed instead of explode. After the speech, Levi cornered me by the champagne fountain. That was unnecessary, he hissed. You've made your point. Have I? Because you still seem to think this is about you. What else could it be about? You've humiliated me in front of my boss, my colleagues. No, I cut him off. You humiliated yourself by never once believing in your wife. I supported you. You tolerated me, I corrected. There's a difference. Maeve approached, face flushed with anger or champagne, or both. Well, I hope you're satisfied. Patricia just texted me that she's sharing your speech on Facebook. Good, I said. Maybe her daughter with the impractical medical degree will see it. This isn't funny, Gianna. This affects all of us. No, it doesn't. I set down my glass. Because this is where I leave. Leave? Levi's voice cracked. What do you mean? I mean, I'm done. I've signed a lease on a downtown loft. My lawyers will contact you about separation proceedings. You can't just... I can. I am. I turned to Maeve. You always wanted me to disappear. I just became too bright for your comfort first. But what about family? She sputtered. Family? I laughed. You mean the people who treated me like an embarrassing footnote in their perfect story? Those people? Savannah appeared at my side. I'll help you move, she said quietly. Maeve gasped. Savannah! Sorry, Mum, but Gianna's right. We've all been awful. I squeezed her hand, then addressed my husband one last time. The divorce papers will arrive tomorrow. Don't worry, I won't take half. I've earned my own fortune. Gianna, please, Levi reached for me. We can fix this. No, I said simply. We can't, because for the first time in our marriage I'm seeing clearly, and what I see isn't worth fixing. I walked away, leaving them by the champagne fountain, surrounded by the evidence of everything they'd refused to see. Behind me, I heard Maeve's strangled whisper. What will people think? I smiled. They'd think exactly what I wanted them to think. The truth. Your story's gone viral, Alexandra said, helping me unpack boxes in my new loft. That video of your speech has over 2 million views. I hung another canvas on the exposed brick wall. My new studio space faced east, catching the morning light perfectly. How's the comment section? Surprisingly supportive. Lots of women sharing similar stories. She scrolled through her phone. Oh, and Maeve's bridge club friends are fighting in the country club Facebook group. Of course they are. I stepped back to assess the painting's placement. Did you see Levi's email? The one begging for a second chance or the one threatening legal action? The one where he finally admitted he was wrong. I pulled out my phone and read, I never saw you because I was too busy making sure everyone saw me. I'm sorry I made you smaller to feel bigger. Wow, Alexandra whistled. That's almost insightful. The doorbell rang. Through the security camera, I saw Savannah holding a box. "I brought the last of your supplies from the house," she said when I let her in, "and Mum's latest dramatic update." "Do tell." "She's telling everyone she always supported your dreams, but you've been led astray by success." Savannah rolled her eyes. Dad finally snapped at dinner yesterday, told her she was the reason both her children moved out. Stanley spoke up. Alexandra asked incredulously. "Full sentences and everything," Savannah grinned. Then he went to golf and left her sputtering. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessie. "The collection's selling out everywhere. They want to double production." Another buzz. An email from Zachary. "International retailers are calling. How do you feel about Europe?" Speaking of success, Alexandra nodded at my phone, ready for tomorrow's interview. "The one about being a rising star in modern design, or the one about redefining success on your own terms?" "Both. They're running back to back on morning television." I sat on a paint-splattered stool, looking around my new space. No more hiding, no more shrinking, no more apologizing for taking up space. The doorbell rang again. This time, Maeve's face filled the security screen. "Should I answer it?" I asked. "Your call," Savannah said, "but she's been practicing her speech all week." I pressed the intercom. "Yes?" "Gianna, please, I need to talk to you." I buzzed her up. She entered like a queen entering a peasant's cottage, taking in the industrial space with poorly concealed disdain. "Well," she sniffed, "it's very artistic." "That's the point." I didn't offer her a seat. "What do you want, Maeve?" "I want—" She paused, recalibrating. "I want to understand." "No, you want to control the narrative. There's a difference." "People are talking, Gianna, about the family, about Levi." "People are talking about me," I corrected, "about my success. The family's just a footnote now." She flinched. "We gave you everything." "No," I said quietly. "You took everything. My confidence, my voice, my right to be more than just Levi's wife." "I was trying to help you." "You were trying to erase me." She sank onto a nearby chair. "And now you're erasing us." "Actually," I walked to my easel, "I'm painting you, all of you, right where you belong." I turned the canvas around. Her eyes widened. The painting showed a woman breaking free from a gilded frame, leaving behind shadowy figures clutching at her edges. It was beautiful, painful, powerful. "This is the centerpiece of my next collection," I said. "I'm calling it Breaking Frame." Tears welled in her eyes. "You've made us the villains." "No, I made you human, small, scared humans who couldn't handle someone else's light." She stood shakily. "Levi misses you." "Levi misses who he thought I was. This?" I gestured around the studio, at the artwork, the success, the freedom. "This is who I actually am." After she left, Alexandra hugged me. "You okay?" "Better than okay." I picked up a brush. "I didn't burn the bridge, you know. I painted a mural on it first, so they'd remember what they lost every time they tried to cross it." Savannah examined the painting. "It's beautiful and terrible and true." My phone buzzed again. Another interview request, another order update, another chapter in the story they never thought I'd write. I dipped my brush in paint, the colour of freedom. Some people spend their lives making others smaller, but some of us, we create masterpieces from the spaces they tried to squeeze us into, and that's the best revenge of all.
Hello, my name is Natalie, and I'm a 38-year-old woman. These past few months have been an incredibly challenging period as I found myself having to relearn and reassess many aspects of my life. Much of the difficulty stems from my relationship with my husband, Willie, but thankfully, a compassionate individual stepped in and helped me through some of the darkest moments. Let me introduce you to the people involved in my journey. First, there's my sister, Lori. She's 5 years younger than me and stunningly beautiful. Growing up, we often clashed. Lori was the popular one, the star of her social circles, while I was the classic nerd. She would tease me often, and it always felt as if there was a hint of jealousy driving her actions. Our mother tried to bridge the gap between us, but her efforts yielded little progress. By the time I went off to college, Lori and I barely spoke. Yet, as we entered adulthood, we slowly reconnected. Although our relationship never grew particularly close, I came to accept the connection we had. Then there's Willie, my ex-husband. We met at work, hit it off quickly, and after 4 years of dating, decided to get married. Together, we bought our first home. Since I was the higher earner, the mortgage and house deed were under my name. A couple of years into our marriage, Willie brought up the idea of starting a family. He approached it gently, hoping I'd be open to it. "Honey, I've been thinking," he began. "We've been together for a while now, and maybe it's time to consider having a family of our own." I sighed, knowing this conversation would come eventually. "Willie, you know my reservations," I replied. He nodded. "I understand, but think about it. We're stable, and it could be wonderful to have little versions of us running around." "Yes, but raising children is a massive commitment and responsibility," I said, feeling the weight of the decision. Willie smiled. "And who's more hardworking and responsible than us?" Eventually, despite my hesitation, I gave in to Willie's request, and we welcomed our son, followed by a daughter 4 years later. At first, Willie was a supportive partner, but before long, the balance in our relationship shifted dramatically. The responsibilities of home and childcare began to fall solely on my shoulders. After our son was born, Willie's career took off with a promotion, and he soon out-earned me. He suggested I leave my job to focus on our family. Reluctantly, I agreed, settling into the role of a full-time parent. To keep myself connected to the outside world, I started hosting dinner parties that often included my mother, Lori, and my mother-in-law, Amanda, especially when she was visiting. This new chapter brought some comforts. I cherished the extra time with my children and the regular visits from family. Even though my relationship with Willie seemed stable, a difficult birthing experience with our second child left me deeply scared, affecting our dynamic. Just when I thought I had finally adjusted, I made a disturbing discovery that shattered my sense of stability. One day, while tidying up our bedroom, I found a pair of women's underwear that didn't belong to me. My heart sank with a mix of shock and sadness. Was I no longer enough for Willie? The timing was especially painful. I was still recovering from our daughter's birth, barely a year past, and was seeing a therapist to work through my postpartum challenges. As I was beginning to make slow progress, the suspicion of infidelity felt like a devastating setback. Overcome with anger and betrayal, I needed answers. I snapped a photo of the underwear and sent it to Willie, asking for an explanation. Then, in a haze of desperation, I turned to his laptop, logging into his social media accounts and sifting through his messages. At first, there was nothing suspicious, no unfamiliar names or strange conversations, which only deepened my confusion and unease. As I dug deeper into his digital life, I braced myself for what I might uncover. I scoured through Willie's messages, digging into every conversation, hoping against hope that I wouldn't find anything incriminating. His chats were mostly with familiar contacts, and although my sister Lori's name kept popping up, it didn't alarm me at first. Why should it? I'd never thought twice about my husband and sister exchanging messages. But a nagging feeling told me to look closer, and what I discovered left me reeling. Their messages were filled with intimate photos, affectionate videos, and declarations of love. They even discussed plans for Willie to leave me. My stomach twisted as I read on, trying to process the betrayal from my own sister. We'd had our ups and downs over the years, but I never imagined she would hurt me like this. Feeling sick and betrayed, I tried calling Willie, but he didn't answer. So I called Lori instead. "Hey, what's up?" she answered casually. "But what's up me, Lori?" I said, my voice trembling with anger. "How could you?" She sounded confused. "I don't know what you mean." "Well, I found a pair of your underwear in my bedroom. Have you been sleeping with Willie?" My voice cracked as I spoke the words. Her response was chillingly nonchalant. "Yeah, for a while now." "Why?" I asked, barely able to breathe. "You're my sister. Didn't that make you think twice?" She had an absurd excuse ready. "Look, I thought I was helping you out. I was keeping Willie busy so you could focus on the kids." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you serious? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You're tearing our family apart." I just want what's best for Willie. If I'm the best for him, then so be it, she said, her words hitting me like a slap in the face. You're disgusting, I spat before hanging up, unable to fathom her audacity. Alone and devastated, I lay in bed, tears streaming down my face as I tried to process the magnitude of the betrayal from the two people I trusted most. Later that night, my youngest daughter woke up crying. I held her, moving through our routines mechanically, my mind numb with grief. I kept my distress hidden from the children. They didn't need to carry the weight of adult problems. I picked up my older child from school, made dinner, and answered their innocent questions about their dad's absence with a fabricated story about him working late. As night wore on, my anger shifted to worry. It was nearing 10 p.m., and there was still no sign of Willie. I called him repeatedly, but he didn't pick up. Desperate, I dialed Lori, but she too was unreachable. Exhausted and overwhelmed, I eventually fell asleep, clinging to the hope that this was all just a nightmare. Morning brought a harsh reality. Willie's absence was undeniable, and a quick look around the bedroom confirmed my worst fears. Most of his belongings were gone. He'd left in the night without a word, without any attempt at closure. Stunned and heartbroken, I knew I had to push through my pain. My children needed me, and I was determined to protect them from the fallout of this betrayal. I got the kids ready, dropped my eldest off at school, and took my youngest to my mother's house. The moment I walked in, my mom sensed something was wrong. My attempt to hold it together was failing, and as the morning dragged on, the thought of raising two children alone began to crush me. Finally, my mom couldn't take the silence anymore. Okay, I've had enough of this. What's going on? She asked, her voice firm. Gathering my courage, I started from the beginning. I found out Willie's been cheating on me. Her face contorted in shock. What? How do you know? I took a deep breath, the words heavy. I found another woman's underwear in our bedroom. As I shared more, emotions I'd kept bottled up started pouring out, marking the beginning of a new, uncertain chapter. When I confronted Willie about it, he didn't respond. He just left. I said. Left? What do you mean? She asked, bewildered. I woke up this morning and all his things were gone. He took everything in the night without a word. The disbelief was still raw. Oh, my poor girl, my mom said, her voice filled with sorrow. It gets worse, I hesitated, bracing myself to share the full extent of the betrayal. I snooped through his things and found out. It's Lori. My mom gasped, shock evident on her face. Your sister? Yes, I whispered, the bitterness of the words making me feel sick. I called her, and she was so casual about it. She said they were in love and thought she was better for him. My mom's face hardened, and she shook her head in disbelief. What has Lori done? I can't believe this. She put a hand on my shoulder. I don't know how you're going to get through this, but I'll be here to help, okay? I nodded, feeling a glimmer of relief in her support. Telling her wasn't as hard as I'd imagined, and the weight of the truth finally shared allowed me a moment of rest. I ended up falling asleep while she took care of my youngest. When I woke, I heard my baby crying and my mom's raised voice in the next room. I rushed out to find her angrily ending a phone call. She turned to me, looking apologetic. I'm sorry for the noise, she said, not elaborating, but I knew she'd been giving Lori a piece of her mind. Over the next few days, Mom stayed with us. She even asked me to block Lori on her behalf, choosing to shut out the one who had hurt us so deeply. Having my mother's support gave me strength to face the aftermath. One particularly lonely day, friends reached out, concerned by rumors of a quick wedding between Willie and Lori. News had already spread that they'd gotten married just a day after Willie had left. Humiliating as it was to admit what had happened, their responses were comforting. My friends chose to cut ties with both of them, standing by me in solidarity. When I told my mom, I could feel her fury. Normally the calmest person I knew, her anger underscored the gravity of Lori's betrayal. But her support was unwavering, not only emotionally but financially as well. She went above and beyond, helping me line up job interviews to regain my independence. Day-to-day life with the kids was challenging but manageable. The hardest part was hiding my sorrow when they asked about their dad. Each time, I put on a brave face, determined not to let his actions define our lives. About a week after Willie's departure, I received a letter from him. But by then, my heart had hardened. I didn't want his apologies or excuses, especially not after the silence that followed his disappearance. In a moment of anger, I burned the letter, a final gesture of closure. Sometimes, in quieter moments, I wondered what he might have said. Part of me regretted not reading it, wondering if there could have been any explanation that would make sense of the wreckage he'd left behind. But the decision was made, and I resolved to let the past go. I had to move forward, focusing on rebuilding a life for my children and myself amidst the turmoil. I often reminded myself that nothing Willie could have written in that letter would change how I felt or undo the damage he'd caused. The next day, hoping to lift our spirits, my mom and I took the kids to the fair. Surrounded by the lively atmosphere, we allowed ourselves to relax and laugh, finding a much-needed escape from the recent turmoil. Later that evening, as we unwound with a glass of wine, I mentioned the letter. "Something came in the mail last night," I began. "Oh, what was it?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. "A letter from Willie." "What did it say?" she asked, assuming I'd read it. "I don't know. I didn't open it," I admitted. "You didn't open it? Why not?" "I just didn't want to deal with anything he had to say, so I burned it," I replied, trying to sound casual. Her eyes widened. "Natalie, what if it was something important, like divorce papers?" "It didn't look official at all. I'm pretty sure it wasn't that," I reassured her. "Well, if you're certain, what do you think he wanted to say?" "Probably a weak apology or something about wanting his things back." "I wouldn't be surprised," I said, brushing off the nagging thoughts about the letter's contents. She paused, then shifted her gaze back to me. "How are you feeling about everything now?" "Today was a good day, but it's hard, especially when the kids keep asking about their dad. I don't even know what to tell them," I admitted, feeling the weight of the situation creep back in. "It's okay if it's still hard, as long as it's getting a bit better. And I want you to know, I'm here for you, always," she said. She hesitated, then added, "I'm planning to cut ties with your sister. Everything I have will go to you and the kids." "Oh, Mom, that means so much, but are you sure?" "Lori's still your daughter," I replied, realizing the magnitude of her decision. "She may be my daughter, but what she did was unforgivable. I raised both of you better than this, and she clearly didn't care," she said, her voice resolute. "She's no longer my daughter in my eyes." It was a harsh decision, and while I understood, I knew it couldn't have been easy for her. The thought of disowning my own child was unimaginable, and it only deepened my gratitude for my mom's unwavering support. 5 days later, a knock at the door broke the quiet routine we'd settled into. I wasn't expecting anyone, and with my mom at work, visitors were rare. Opening the door cautiously, I saw two men in black suits on my porch. "Can I help you?" I asked, peering out. "We're lawyers and we have something for you," one of them replied, handing me an envelope and then a check. My eyes widened as I glanced at it. A check made out to me for $920,000. "There must be some mistake," I stammered. "There's no mistake," they assured me. "Please read the note." Opening the envelope, I found a letter from Amanda, my mother-in-law. She'd come by 5 days earlier but found no one home. When she called Willie, he hinted that he was locked out because I had changed the locks. Sensing something was wrong, Amanda had pressed him until he admitted everything. Appalled by his behavior, she had made arrangements to write me and her grandchildren into her will. In her note, she thanked me for saving her from entrusting her estate to Willie, and she explained that she was terminally ill. She had passed away the day before, ensuring her last wish was fulfilled. Her assets went to me and the children. Tears streamed down my face as I read her words. Amanda's unexpected kindness and unwavering support, even in her final days, was both heartwarming and bittersweet. Her integrity and strength were traits I had admired, and even though Willie resented them, they had been a comfort to me. Not long after Amanda's passing, Willie reached out over the phone. I expected an attempt at reconciliation, but I chose to listen. "What's this all about?" he demanded. "You'll need to be more specific," I replied calmly. "Why weren't you at the house when I asked?" "I sent you a letter with instructions for my mom's visit," he said. "Oh, that was in the letter? I never read it." "I burned it," I admitted. "You burned it. You've ruined everything," he accused. "Mom was supposed to help with her estate, but you've taken everything for yourself." "That's hypocritical, Willie. You left us, and now you only care because of the money. Your mother made her decision to protect us. Please don't contact me or the children again," I responded, ending the call firmly. I moved swiftly to legalize our separation. The divorce was straightforward, and I was granted full custody of our children. Willie tried to challenge Amanda's will to claim a portion of the inheritance, but her documents were ironclad, leaving him unsuccessful. Willie and Lori continued to harass me, hoping I'd relent, but I stayed resolute in my decision. The inheritance allowed me to secure my children's future, fund their education, and make sound investments to ensure our stability. It also gave my mom the chance to retire comfortably. I returned to work, and although it was a challenging adjustment for the kids, we found our new rhythm. In time, when they're mature enough, I'll share the full story with my children. Though the memories still carry some pain, I'm optimistic about the future. There's a sense of promise in the road ahead, and I'm confident that brighter days are on their way. Hi, I'm Susan, and I'm 30 years old. I met my husband Ethan through a mutual friend, and after 2 years of dating, we decided to get married. While we haven't started a family yet, we're thoroughly enjoying our life together. Ethan's family owns a successful factory with around 50 employees. The company was founded by his late father and has flourished thanks to the hard work of everyone involved. Right now, Ethan's sister Maria runs the business. She's unmarried and has a natural talent for leadership, which she seems to have inherited from their mother, both of whom are exceptional communicators. Maria is warm and welcoming. She made me feel like a sister the moment we met, a stark contrast to the way I grew up with my brothers. However, not everything is without challenges. The factory is close to our family home, and since Ethan's father passed away, my mother-in-law has retired and spends her time looking forward to our 2 p.m. coffee breaks, which I've come to dread. Every time I'm asked to fetch her coffee, it feels like my mood sinks. She uses these breaks to express her discontent, often questioning why Ethan and I haven't had children yet, a subject that's out of our hands. If I don't respond to her probing, she becomes irritated and says hurtful things, questioning my worthiness as Ethan's wife and even making cruel remarks about my late parents. The tension between us dates back to when I first met Ethan's family. Upon learning that both of my parents had passed away, my mother from cancer when I was 8 and my father from a heart attack when I was 18, my mother-in-law was visibly shocked. I had a tough childhood, but my father raised my brother and me on his own, and I miss him deeply, especially since he passed away before I had the chance to truly show him how grateful I was for everything he sacrificed. Navigating these family dynamics has been tough, especially when dealing with my mother-in-law's harsh words. Yet despite these challenges, the bond I share with Ethan and the kindness I've received from parts of his family, especially Maria, has given me strength. I'm learning how to handle the more difficult relationships with grace. People often express sympathy when they learn about my past, acknowledging the hardships I must have faced growing up without my parents. However, my mother-in-law's reaction was different. "So you might not live long either, huh?" she remarked once, leaving me stunned with her blunt, insensitive words. Ethan was just as shocked as I was, but my mother-in-law continued as if it were a practical concern. As I struggled with my place in the family, Maria, who had been quiet until then, suddenly made her stance clear. Slamming her hand on the table, she interrupted the tension with a firm voice that cut through the silence. When my mother-in-law tried to seek Maria's support, saying, "Right, Maria? You agree with me, don't you?" Maria responded with a frosty glare and said, "What are you talking about? Ethan chose Susan himself, and she's wonderful. Why can't you support that?" Her protective words took my mother-in-law by surprise, and from that point on, the overtly harsh comments stopped, at least when others were around. The subtle digs, however, continued, especially during our one-on-one coffee breaks, where I could always sense her disappointment if I, not Maria, was the one bringing her coffee. Thankfully, Ethan and I didn't live with his family. We rented a nearby room, which provided some distance from her negativity, limiting our interactions to those brief coffee moments. Our respite from living under the same roof was cut short when a record-breaking hurricane caused severe damage to our apartment. The ceiling leaked so badly that it became uninhabitable. As we tried to manage the situation, Maria suggested we stay with them, smiling innocently as she offered a solution. "Why worry? Just stay with us. Your commute will be 25 seconds. Given the circumstances, we moved in with Ethan's family temporarily. When we arrived, my mother-in-law greeted us with a warm, though mostly directed at Ethan, "Welcome home, Ethan. It must have been tough, but Mom is happy we can live together again." Ethan, however, seemed distant, almost rebellious in his response. After a moment, my mother-in-law noticed me and remarked, "Oh, Susan, you're here too. I didn't notice because you're so quiet." smile more. Her attempt at lightheartedness only added tension to the already strained atmosphere reflected in Ethan's frustrated expression. The dynamic in the house felt off, but this experience only highlighted the complex layers of family interactions and the resilience needed to navigate them, especially now that we were living under the same roof following the hurricane damage to our apartment. When we moved in with my in-laws, I knew adjusting to life under the same roof would be a challenge. To show my appreciation, I decided to cook a simple but hearty dinner on our first night: bread soup and steak. Both my mother-in-law and sister-in-law complimented the meal, easing some of my tension and offering me a brief moment of relief. However, just as I thought dinner was winding down, my mother-in-law surprised everyone by standing up, humming cheerfully, and retrieving a container from the fridge. She then generously topped her steak with its contents, which to my shock, was jam. The sight of jam on a perfectly cooked steak caught everyone's attention. My husband, sitting next to me, looked visibly disgusted, while Maria rolled her eyes and commented that no amount of persuasion could stop their mother from her peculiar food habits. She then burst into laughter. The pairing was, indeed, unusual. When you eat something salty, you crave something sweet, right? My mother-in-law explained, clearly pleased with herself. Despite her enthusiasm, the thought alone made my stomach churn. Sensing my hesitation, she encouraged me to try it, proclaiming it was delicious. I forced a smile, but it clearly didn't satisfy her. I'm recommending it for a reason. You might live longer if you follow my example, she added cryptically before leaving the room. Afterward, my husband and Maria quickly apologized for her strange behavior, explaining that their mother had an intense sweet tooth and never felt her day was complete without something sugary. They were amazed her health checkups always came back normal despite her odd diet. Maria revealed that she was often sent to buy cake because their mother found it embarrassing to do so herself. This errand had made Maria quite familiar with all the local cake shops. Ethan chimed in, expressing concern about their mother's health habits and feeling guilty that Maria often had to manage their mother's whims alone. Well, I think you guys will have to help out more from now on, Maria said with a cheerful grin, suggesting that we might be in for more lively interactions with their mother while living together. Despite the challenges of living with my in-laws, there were some perks, like the drastically shorter commute. But it also meant navigating the complex web of family dynamics, dietary quirks, and unexpected comments all under one roof. I had taken on the responsibility of managing the household chores, trying to keep everything in order before and after my workday. But despite my efforts to engage with my mother-in-law, she frequently dismissed me or reacted coldly. Regardless of her attitude, she never missed an opportunity to criticize the children during our coffee breaks. Since relocating here, my days had become increasingly difficult due to the added stress, which was starting to show in my mood. Ethan noticed this shift and suggested multiple times that we should visit a doctor together. He even proposed escaping to a hotel for a short break, but I declined, considering it an unnecessary expense, especially since the nearest hotel was quite far away. The situation worsened when my husband announced an upcoming week-long business trip, and to my dismay, Maria would be accompanying him. This meant I'd be alone with my mother-in-law, which filled me with dread. Though he offered to take me along, I decided against it, hoping I could endure the week on my own despite feeling unwell. On the morning they left, Maria sent me a message titled Mother-in-Law Survival Guide. The message humorously advised, if anything happens, just give her cake, and you'll be fine. It included a list of local cake shops and her favorite selections from each. Surprisingly, the quirky guide brought me some comfort as I braced myself for the tough week ahead. I was holding onto a fragile thread of optimism, convinced that once the week passed, our home renovations would be finished and I could return to our usual living situation. But that hope quickly faded on the first evening alone. I came home from work to find my mother-in-law blocking the entrance with an air of confrontation. She demanded, "You know why I'm angry, don't you?" I responded, a bit exasperated, "No, I'm not psychic." It turned out I had missed the scheduled 2 p.m. coffee breaks, something that slipped my mind amidst the chaos of juggling work and home responsibilities. With my husband and Maria away, I had hoped my mother-in-law would understand, given her own work history. But instead, the moment we were alone, she lashed out at me, accusing me of starting this harassment and calling me a wicked woman. I was stunned, feeling an overwhelming sense of disconnect. All I had done was inadvertently forget a couple of coffee breaks, yet I was being treated with such hostility. I counted down the days until my husband and sister-in-law returned, clinging to the hope that I just had a few more days to endure the tense atmosphere. During a particularly rough day, I bought a cake on my lunch break and left it in the office fridge, planning to use it as a peace offering for my mother-in-law. When I mentioned the forgotten cake later, her demeanor shifted completely from anger to delight. "Let's just forget today happened. Just don't forget tomorrow. Okay," she said with renewed cheerfulness before returning to her room. From that point on, I made a point to remember the coffee breaks, dreading the fallout if I slipped up again. But the stress of it all began to take a toll on me. The morning my husband and Maria were due back, I was overwhelmed with nausea, headaches, and a total loss of appetite. I couldn't manage work, so I took the day off and went to the hospital. The doctor's words shattered me. "It's quite serious. Can your family come right away?" I was diagnosed with cancer and given a prognosis of possibly only 2 to 5 months left to live. As I left the doctor's office, tears stained my face. I was physically shaking, emotionally spent. I returned home, collapsed onto the bed, and was immediately interrupted by the door slamming open. My mother-in-law stormed in, scolding me for skipping work while everyone else was working hard. Her harsh words only made my headache worse. With little energy left, I muttered that I was feeling ill and tried to turn away to close my eyes. She didn't let up, continuing to rant about my supposed inadequacies and even insinuating that I wouldn't live long. I lay there silently, feigning sleep, hoping she would leave. Then she demanded to know why I hadn't prepared for today's coffee break. Her insensitivity was appalling. I opened my eyes to find her hovering over me. "Grace, I'm sorry, I just can't go shopping today. Could you please?" I started weakly. She cut me off dismissively. "Get me chocolate cake, and stop faking your illness." My frustration reached its boiling point. "Shut up. Listen to me," I shouted. "I have 1 month to live. Go buy your damn cake, you idiot." The words left her speechless, her eyes wide in shock. At that moment, my husband and Maria appeared, alarmed by the confrontation. "Mom, what are you doing?" my husband asked. "What do you mean by 1 more month?" His face was pale, mirroring Maria's concern. Ignoring his visibly shaken mother, my husband rushed to my side, offering me the support I so desperately needed. His sudden presence brought a wave of relief, and I broke down, tears flowing uncontrollably. "I can't take it anymore," I sobbed. I sobbed uncontrollably, the weight of the doctor's words still echoing in my mind. It might be cancer, he had said, and I felt nothing but dread and sorrow. But through it all, my mother-in-law's relentless nagging to go out and buy cake was pushing me to my breaking point. Enough was enough. "Stop bothering me about the kids too," I snapped, finally letting the anger I had bottled up for so long pour out. "Just leave me alone, you idiot." The frustration I had kept hidden came flooding out, and as I broke down in tears, my husband and sister-in-law exchanged cold, disapproving glares with my mother-in-law. The absurdity of asking a sick person to go buy cake now seemed glaringly obvious. Maria, who was usually so cheerful, wore an expression of grim determination that felt almost intimidating in the tense moment. Then my husband raised his voice, revealing something we had kept private for so long. "You've been making cruel comments about us not having kids." "Well, the reason we can't have kids is because of me," he confessed. "After we got married, we went to a doctor. The tests showed that I had fertility issues." He paused, the weight of his words hanging heavy between us. "I never wanted to burden Susan with it, so we kept it to ourselves. But now you know." My mother-in-law's face drained of color as the realization set in. It was a blow she hadn't expected. Just then, my phone rang, the hospital. The urgency in their voice heightened my anxiety, and the tears began to fall again. "It's okay, Susan. Can you stand?" "I'm right here with you," my husband whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Together, we rushed to the hospital, my heart pounding in my chest. Once there, we were ushered into a room where the doctor and the hospital director were waiting for us. The news that followed was nothing short of a shock. There had been a dreadful mistake. My medical records had been confused with another patient who shared the same name and birth date. The diagnosis had been a misdiagnosis. I didn't have cancer. The gravity of the error hit me like a tidal wave, and the exhaustive faces of the medical staff made it all the more surreal. The mix-up even made local news, with the hospital promising a review of their procedures. They referred us to another facility for follow-up care. As we left, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of relief and disbelief. At my in-laws' house, Maria had clearly spoken to my mother-in-law, who now seemed to shrink in her chair, almost as if deflated. Later, Maria confided in me, her voice filled with emotion. I was terrified, Susan. Terrified that I might lose my brother's wife. That moment of vulnerability between us helped heal some of the tension that had been hanging over our family. It was a painful but necessary revelation. Then, in an unexpected twist of fate, everything changed again. As Maria, with genuine concern, asked about my well-being, I found myself laughing through my tears. I'm pregnant, I said, joy flooding through me. My husband's face mirrored my emotions as we both cried, overwhelmed with happiness. We rushed to the maternity hospital, and after a few tests, it was confirmed. Yes, we were expecting. We could hear the heartbeat, and the joy we both felt was beyond words. Maria, who had come with us, shed tears of happiness too. The roller coaster of emotions didn't stop there. Soon after, Maria announced her engagement to her longtime boyfriend and her plans to move to another state. It wasn't a surprise to us, though my mother-in-law was completely blindsided when she heard the news. What? You're getting married? And moving away? She exclaimed in disbelief. Maria, ever so calm, reminded her, yeah, I told you about it before. But with everything finally settled, we all shared a laugh over her confusion. When we returned home, the renovations had been completed. The roof was fixed, and our room looked brand new. We cheered with joy, grateful for the fresh start that had arrived. But even amidst the joy, the atmosphere with my mother-in-law remained tense. My husband was particularly upset, harboring a deep anger that was hard to let go. He had even said he never wanted to see his mother again. Yet slowly, something shifted. My mother-in-law began to show up more often, but not with cakes as she had before. Now she brought healthier options like biscuits, a sign that she was trying to change. And now that she knew she would soon be a grandmother, she seemed to be softening. The employees who had worked with my father-in-law when he was CEO seemed pleased to see her, and I started to realize that she wasn't entirely unkind, just a bit misguided. Over time, our interactions improved. She began to help more, buying diapers, leaving homemade side dishes outside our door in a cooler so as not to disturb us. These thoughtful gestures started to mean more to me, and I began to see that we could actually get along. The moment that sealed this transformation came shortly after our daughter Catherine was born. My mother-in-law took my hand, her eyes filled with tears, and she said, "Thank you, Susan. Really, thank you." Her sincerity in that moment was the first real sign of change, and I knew it was genuine. Maria, too, seemed to be thriving in her new life. She recently shared her pregnancy news with us, and it felt like a full circle moment. Soon, we would all be gathered together at the in-laws' house, sharing a meal, not in tension, but in harmony. It felt like a new beginning, one I had never expected, but welcomed with open arms. On the morning of the 25th, the president unexpectedly informed me that I was terminated. He explained that his daughter would be taking over my position, and therefore he required my immediate resignation. I stood there, stunned, unable to respond. That particular day was crucial for handling payments to our suppliers, some of which were longtime partners whose transactions I oversaw personally as a gesture of goodwill. Despite this, he suggested I take the day off as a parting gift and quickly ushered me out, the office door snapping shut behind me. My name is Donna, and I'd been with this family-owned paving company since high school, working as a clerical assistant for over a decade. The company, with a staff of around 32, had always felt like a warm, welcoming place under the leadership of the founder, who was both president and an active part of our daily operations. His wife, Brenda, often helped with various tasks, and their daughter, Carol, was skilled in both field and office work. Her husband, a well-respected site manager, earned the loyalty of the on-site teams. Despite being the founding family, they treated everyone equally, fostering a harmonious work environment. This atmosphere shifted dramatically when the founder stepped down after a cancer diagnosis, passing the presidency to Carol's husband with everyone's support as we all wished the founder well in his health battles. But an unexpected twist came when the founder's estranged son, Anthony, resurfaced after 33 years of silence. Disowned decades ago, he returned with his family, and the company's dynamic changed almost overnight, marked by my abrupt and disheartening dismissal after years of loyalty. I hadn't known about Anthony's past until his sudden reappearance. Longtime employees shared stories of his troubled youth, recounting his frequent run-ins with the law and multiple instances where his parents had to smooth things over. His issues escalated as he dropped out of high school and became involved in multi-level marketing schemes and fraud, which eventually led his father to disown him. After years of estrangement, Anthony had returned, claiming to have recognized his mistakes and pleading for forgiveness. This tense reunion unfolded in our compact office layout with little space separating the clerical area from the president's office. He expressed his desire to start anew and work for the company, but given his past, it was hard to take his intentions seriously. Nevertheless, the chairman requested that we all give Anthony a chance, asking for a fresh start. Carol and the other senior employees, aware of Anthony's checkered history, struggled to embrace his return but respected the chairman's wishes. Soon after, Anthony and his family moved into an annex of the chairman's house, with Anthony joining the company and his wife helping with household responsibilities. I only saw their daughter once during a brief visit to the office. She looked like a college student. The chairman was convinced that Anthony had genuinely changed after enduring hardships, and Brenda was thrilled to have her son back, hoping it would restore unity within both the family and the company. But this optimism faded quickly. Before long, Anthony began stirring up tension, insisting that, as the eldest son, he was the rightful heir to the presidency. This bold claim soured his relationships with Carol and her husband, the site manager. Despite putting on a diligent front around his father, Anthony contributed little real work and frequently belittled the value of physical labor and those who performed it. His dismissive attitude toward the staff, whom he referred to as mere worker ants, swiftly alienated him. Several younger employees were so demoralized by his behavior that they felt compelled to approach the chairman directly, explaining they could not work under such conditions. Despite these concerns, the chairman and Brenda tried to mediate, urging patience and a broader view of the situation. Meanwhile, the chairman's health deteriorated, possibly from stress, leading to his hospitalization 5 months ago. During this vulnerable period, Anthony unilaterally declared himself president, ignoring the staff's preference for the original succession plan, which designated Carol's husband as the successor. Swayed by parental affection or perhaps clouded judgment, the chairman allowed this change, creating a deep rift within the company. Many employees saw this decision as biased and damaging to the company's previously positive atmosphere. With morale plummeting, Carol and her husband quietly took on the burden of keeping the company afloat. This shift in responsibility meant that many administrative tasks, once shared by Brenda, Carol, and me, fell entirely on my shoulders. I often found myself working late into the night to keep up. Meanwhile, Anthony's commitment was minimal. He spent much of his time at hostess bars, betting on horse races, and gambling. Our interactions grew particularly tense after I confronted him about misusing the company credit card for personal expenses. While I had overlooked a few questionable charges in the past, this incident was impossible to ignore. Returning the receipt to him, I said firmly, "I can't approve this expense." Anthony's response was sharp. "Why not?" I replied, "This is for your wife's corrective underwear. It's not a business expense." Anthony's face flushed with anger. "Don't challenge me. She's the president's wife. It's only natural for her to dress well. This is a valid expense." The exchange left a bitter edge to our already strained working relationship, as Anthony's disregard for boundaries and resources became more evident by the day. I was stunned by his reasoning. The expense was $8,000, a substantial amount by any standard, but his next suggestion left me speechless. "Then let's make selling corrective underwear our new business venture. We'll categorize it as inventory so it counts as an expense." He looked genuinely pleased with this idea. "We're a paving company," I managed to say. Undeterred, he continued, "So what? We'll tell clients that if they don't buy from us, we'll cancel their contracts. Everyone will buy. It's easy money. $38,000 for a set." He laughed at his own idea, but I was horrified. "That's absolutely unacceptable," I responded sharply. "It would ruin our credibility." From that moment on, I became the target of his disdain. Daily, he belittled me, and the situation became so unbearable that I often thought about quitting. But my loyalty to the chairman, who had always supported me, and my concern for my colleagues, who would undoubtedly face more hardship if I left, kept me from doing so. Besides, I couldn't afford to lose my income suddenly. I resolved to endure it, biding my time and planning to leave when I could do so responsibly. Then, Unexpectedly, I was fired. As I processed this abrupt turn, I knew my sudden departure would create issues for our clients. With determination, I approached him. "I can't just leave without proper notice and a handover," I insisted. "Your daughter will struggle with the workload on her own, especially today with her supplier payments due." His face turned red with anger. "Shut up. I told you to resign because my daughter is starting today. Let the payments wait until the suppliers come to collect. There's no need to pay them up front." Shocked, I tried to reason with him. "Isn't it normal to pay for something once you buy it?" I explained, as though speaking to a child. He dismissed me with a shocking suggestion. "Then tell them we won't make the payment this time. They should give it to us for free." "That's not how business is done," I replied, astounded. "You're completely useless," he snapped. "My daughter has a college degree. She can handle the office work easily. Unlike you, she won't question my expenses. We don't need someone like you in our company. Leave, now." It became clear he wanted his daughter to take over accounting to justify personal expenses as business expenditures. "Fine," I said, "but don't think I'll regret this." With a heavy heart, I gathered my belongings and left. Concerned for our clients, I immediately called Carol, knowing she and Brenda were preoccupied with the chairman's health, but trusting her to handle the urgent situation. Once outside, I realized I'd been fired without notice, a clear violation of labor standards. If I reported this, the company would face serious repercussions. Since our company was part of a payment support system for small and medium-sized enterprises, I could claim my severance pay and 1 month's salary. There was no need to rush into another job. I walked away with my integrity intact, hopeful that Carol could manage the chaos left behind. Since I could apply for my benefits within 5 years of retirement and the Labor Standards Office had a 3-year statute of limitations, I meticulously mapped out the steps and timeline for my retirement. This plan gave me some much-needed breathing room. I'd been working tirelessly with endless overtime and weekends without a moment to myself. Eager for a change, I decided to take a day trip to the beach to recharge. After a refreshing day by the sea, I checked my phone in my locker, only to find it flooded with missed calls, emails, and voicemails. Among these, an email from Carol stood out. She confirmed that the payment processes had been handled smoothly, and everything was in order, a relief given the tense way I had left the company. Then I listened to a voicemail from the company, hearing the president's panicked voice. "What's going on? They're saying I'm not the real president. Did you know about this? Explain yourself." I couldn't help but chuckle at his distress and delayed realization of his situation. One message in particular caught my attention, a request from the chairman himself. Feeling a sense of urgency, I headed to the hospital that evening. When I arrived, I found Brenda and the president, Anthony, already there in the chairman's room. The chairman, seeing me, apologized from his hospital bed, saying, "Donna, I'm truly sorry for my son's foolishness." Anthony, still arrogant and bewildered, blurted out, "What's going on? I'm not the official president. Explain yourself." His confusion was evident, but the chairman quickly silenced him with a firm command to quiet down. It turned out that after I had called Carol, she had immediately informed both the chairman and Brenda of the situation. The chairman had then confronted Anthony with a pointed question. "Do you really not understand?" This revelation was a turning point, bringing clarity to the mess created in the wake of my dismissal. Anthony, visibly agitated and confused, continued to raise his voice. I calmly explained the reality of his position. "Anthony, you never actually had any legal authority. Your role as president was essentially a nominal title." I continued, clarifying, "In business terms, president is a role within the company but does not automatically carry legal standing. The representative director is the one who holds legal responsibilities for the company's external actions. This role requires specific legal procedures to change, unlike the more informal assignment of a company title." 5 months ago, when Anthony was named president, there had been significant opposition from Carol, the site manager, and veteran employees. To keep things running smoothly, I had suggested a compromise. Anthony would act as a figurehead president, while the chairman retained his legal status as the representative director. With a growing understanding of these distinctions, it was clear that the chairman's trust had been in my knowledge of the company's operations and legal requirements. I understood the implications clearly. The plan was straightforward. If Anthony showed true commitment and earned the trust of the employees, we would start the formal process to make his presidency official. However, if he failed to prove himself as a capable leader, our contingency plan involved either removing him or possibly closing the company altogether, allowing Carol and the site manager to start a new venture. While people like Carol had their doubts, the chairman and Brenda held on to hope for Anthony, that is, until he unjustly dismissed me. This finally opened their eyes to his unsuitability for leadership. If you want to lead, you need to respect and support your employees, the chairman had often reminded Anthony. But Anthony, in his usual dismissive way, brushed it off. It's not a big deal, right? Can't we just take care of the formalities now? No, it's not that simple, the chairman explained patiently. Our company offers stocks to employees who wish to invest, and many have done so. Donna, for example, owns 15% of the company, making her a major shareholder. We can't just ignore her position. This exchange underscored Anthony's fundamental misunderstanding of the responsibilities and ethics of leadership. His face turned pale as he began to grasp the seriousness of his role. I don't own any shares, he stammered, clearly shaken. With a sigh, the chairman replied, I intended to pass my shares to you once you prove yourself worthy as president. I'm disappointed. Were you only interested in the wealth, thinking I had little time left? The chairman's voice trailed off, filled with despair, and he sank back, emotionally drained. Brenda, standing by him, remained silent, visibly troubled by the situation. Defiantly, Anthony muttered, I'm the eldest son. What's wrong with claiming what's rightfully mine? The company belongs to me. His words only deepened the chairman's disappointment. I can't allow this to continue, the chairman declared firmly. As the representative director and a shareholder, I hold the authority to call a shareholders' meeting to discuss your removal. I seized the moment to speak. Mr. President, I no longer wish to work under your leadership. I'm resigning effective immediately. However, I expect my severance, 1 month's salary, and payment for all unpaid overtime and holiday work. I added, as a shareholder, I'll also pursue action through the Labor Standards Office to remove those harming the company. As I spoke, Anthony's expression shifted from shock to pure dread. I continued, Carol has been visiting clients and informing them about our new company, and many have already decided to switch over. Most of our employees are planning to join us as well. That's impossible. I'll sue you. Anthony shouted, his voice breaking, but his threats were empty as the decisive actions we'd taken had already set the stage for a significant shift. The chairman, standing his ground, asserted, I am the representative director. You don't have the authority to make such decisions. Anthony collapsed, a picture of defeat. Watching him, I felt a mix of regret, disappointment, and a sense of closure. Mr. President, I said, addressing him with finality, it's unfortunate it had to end this way. If you had only tried to learn and adapt, things might have been different. But this is the result of your choices. In the aftermath, the chairman made the difficult decision to close the company, leaving Anthony without a position. Anthony's wife attempted to sell corrective undergarments, but the venture failed. They eventually faced legal trouble for their involvement in a pyramid scheme and were arrested. Carol, returning home, found boxes of unsold inventory, a sad reminder of their failed attempt. Meanwhile, their daughter found work elsewhere, though I don't know the details. I am now happily employed at the new company Carol and the site manager established. Here, I value my relationships with colleagues and the genuine supportive work environment we've created. This experience taught me the importance of ethical leadership and the invaluable strength of a workplace built on integrity and respect. My mother-in-law made it clear that anyone unwilling to contribute to household chores was unwelcome in her home. She seemed to expect an apology from me, perhaps even some remorse. Meanwhile, my husband sat beside her, a subtle smirk playing on his lips, as if he took pleasure in watching me being reprimanded. But to their surprise, I felt an unexpected calm wash over me. I'll leave, I said, my voice firm and unwavering. It was the first time I felt no hesitation in the face of their demands. In that moment, I realized it was no longer my concern to worry about their actions or attitudes. They would eventually have to face the consequences of their behavior. My name is Elizabeth, and I'm 40 years old. I balance a full-time job with managing our household, my husband Andrew, and I have 3 adult children who have moved out to start their own lives. When we envisioned this stage of our lives, it was supposed to be our time to enjoy each other's company. But everything changed when my mother-in-law, widowed and needing companionship, moved in with us. Her arrival shifted the dynamic in our home, which had once been peaceful and shared only between Andrew and me. My job is demanding, often requiring late hours at the office, and by the time I return home, I am exhausted. The sight that greets me only adds to my frustration. The living room is cluttered with snacks and clothes, and Andrew, seemingly oblivious to the chaos, lounges on the sofa with his beer and TV, barely acknowledging my presence. No dinner is prepared, leaving me to handle the kitchen duties myself, my disappointment growing with every passing minute. My mother-in-law, often emerging from her room, criticizes me for being late or for my business trips, claiming I have no excuse for neglecting the home. She accuses me of failing as a homemaker, turning every minor issue into an attack on my character. Over time, I've learned that responding only escalates the situation. It's better to let her have her say and wait for her to calm down. Though this approach isn't ideal, it prevents further arguments and keeps the peace, at least for a while. I absorb her criticisms in silence and redirect my focus to preparing dinner. Though her words sting, I push through, knowing they will stop eventually. What's harder to tolerate, however, is my husband's reaction. He seems to take pleasure in watching me be scolded by his mother. Women should appreciate their husbands. You lack charm, she often says, and he echoes her, mocking me as I lay the dinner table. My anger isn't just directed at her, it's growing toward Andrew as well. Despite my repeated pleas for them to start dinner without me when I'm late, they never do. They sit idly by, waiting for me to serve them, as though I'm their servant. The dynamic in our home has worsened since my mother-in-law moved in. Before her arrival, Andrew was a true partner, helping around the house, cooking when I was late, and actively participating in raising our kids. But now, he's stopped helping altogether and joined his mother in her constant criticism. It's confusing and frustrating. She calls me lazy and incompetent, yet she's the one relying on us. She hasn't contributed financially despite inheriting money from her late husband. Instead, she squandered it on luxuries and accumulated debt. Now she lives with us, virtually rent-free. This tension began the moment she moved in. She promised to be considerate, even bowing deeply in a show of sincerity. But within a day she reverted to her old ways, criticizing my housekeeping. At first, it was almost amusing, but it quickly became serious. She accused me of being a poor wife because of my focus on work, criticizing not only my housekeeping but my professional commitments as well. I tried explaining that my job sometimes demands late hours, but my words fell on deaf ears. Instead, she suggested I take a part-time job at the local supermarket, as if that would somehow be more suitable. She had a fixed idea of what a daughter-in-law should be like, but little understanding of the realities of my job. Living with her became increasingly difficult. Every dissatisfaction, even with something as trivial as her meal choices, led to complaints. Even simple routines like breakfast became issues. We used to grab bread or buy lunch, but she disapproved of these habits. Reluctantly, she began following our household rules, but not without constant grumbling. Dinner time became the focal point of contention. She insisted it be served promptly at 7:00 p.m. with at least 3 side dishes, demanding that everyone eat together. She claimed this was what normal families did, but my work often kept me well past 7:00 p.m., making her demands unreasonable. She doubted the necessity of my job, suggesting Andrew's income should suffice and implying that my work was more a matter of personal choice than financial necessity. When I looked to Andrew for support, he simply dismissed my concerns, suggesting I'd learn my lesson eventually. His lack of defense only deepened my frustration. He seemed content to play the indifferent husband, incapable of contributing to household chores. This behavior irritated me even more because when we first moved in with my mother-in-law, he had promised to support me. But since then, he had aligned himself with her, abandoning his role as my partner. They had teamed up against me, treating me unfairly. Whenever I tried to involve Andrew in the housework, my mother-in-law would promptly interject, declaring that such tasks were the wife's responsibility. Andrew, to my growing frustration, never challenged her. This shift in dynamics left me bewildered. We had always worked well together before, but now something had changed. Over time, I began to notice a disturbing pattern. Each time his mother criticized me, Andrew would smirk, almost as if he found it amusing. That's when it hit me. Maybe he resented the fact that I earned more than he did and felt uncomfortable with the idea of sharing household duties as a result. This realization made me rethink many aspects of our relationship and how it had shifted since his mother moved in with us. Andrew, traditionally seen as the family provider, couldn't openly express dissatisfaction, but I began to suspect that he was secretly enjoying the situation. When his mother first moved in, she frequently criticized my role in the household, openly questioning whether Andrew was truly the head of the family. There was a certain satisfaction he seemed to derive from being scolded, which revealed a side of him I hadn't fully acknowledged before. Despite all the years we'd been together, I felt like I was discovering a different person entirely. The atmosphere at home, once peaceful, was now clouded with constant tension. My mother-in-law's incessant complaints and Andrew's failure to stand up for me made everything harder. Before she arrived, I had never felt the need to question our relationship, but now, everything felt unstable. I spent many anxious days wondering what to do next. One afternoon, while I was out shopping, a neighbor approached me with a remark that caught me completely off guard. She suggested I should be more considerate towards my mother-in-law. Surprised, I asked her to elaborate. She confessed that although she wasn't fond of her own mother-in-law, she didn't consider herself inconsiderate. Then she shared something unsettling. My mother-in-law had been talking about me behind my back. According to her, I neglected all the housework. The house was always a mess, and the laundry was never done. She claimed her rheumatism was getting worse because she had to do the chores herself, especially with Andrew coming home late from work. Hearing how I was being portrayed as a neglectful wife who only relied on bread for meals, leaving my mother-in-law to complain about everything, was shocking. It quickly became clear that the cold, unfriendly reactions I was receiving from the neighbors were the result of the stories my mother-in-law had been spreading. Despite her small, frail appearance, she knew exactly how to manipulate others, painting herself as a victim of a lazy daughter-in-law who shirked all household duties. The look the neighbor gave me was one of cold accusation, a reflection of how these harmful tales had shaped people's perception of me. I felt a deep sense of embarrassment, realizing that our family issues had become fodder for neighborhood gossip. I muttered a quick denial and rushed back home, hoping to avoid further confrontation. As I entered the living room, I braced myself for the next round of criticism. I found my mother-in-law engrossed in her TV show, snacking away as usual. Taking a deep breath, I approached her firmly, saying, "Please stop spreading rumors." To my dismay, she just laughed and brushed it off, insisting, "But it's true." Something inside me snapped. If she was determined to keep spreading these lies, then I would no longer play the role of the dutiful daughter-in-law. The very next day after returning from work, I was met with the usual demands for dinner. This time, however, I bypassed both my husband and my mother-in-law's complaints and went straight to the kitchen. I prepared just a single serving of instant ramen for myself. When my mother-in-law saw what I was doing, her face turned crimson, and her protest grew louder. "So you're just proving you're the worst daughter-in-law, huh? Not doing any housework, not even cooking dinner. Fine, if that's how you want it," she snapped angrily. I continued eating my noodles in silence, unbothered by her outburst. Eventually, she turned to Andrew, seeking his support. When he approached me, I laid everything out. "Mom's been telling everyone that I'm a terrible daughter-in-law who neglects the housework." When I confronted her, she just doubled down on her lies. "So I've decided to stop doing it altogether. I'm just doing what she's been telling everyone I do." I shared what the neighbor had told me the day before. Andrew, looking concerned, tried to mediate. "She probably just exaggerated. Don't be so stubborn," he said, despite his mother clearly being in the wrong. But once again, he sided with her. Exhausted and drained, I discarded the empty ramen cup and ignored his pleas. I walked away and retreated to the bathroom, where I did my laundry and took a long, quiet bath. As I soaked, a wave of relief washed over me. It became clear that, no matter how hard I tried, I was always going to be seen as the bad wife. From that moment on, I made the decision to stop engaging in the household tasks my mother-in-law criticized me for. She bemoaned the lack of freshly baked bread for breakfast on my days off, but I remained resolute. When I woke up the next morning and stepped into the living room, she demanded that I go out and buy bread immediately. In response, I looked at her and said, "Why don't you buy it yourself? I'm such a bad wife, after all. I'll only buy my share from now on. You'll need to pay for your own food or handle it yourself." With that, I ignored her protests, made myself coffee, and quickly ate my bread. As I watched her reaction, part of me wondered if I had been too harsh, but after everything I had endured, it felt justified. After finishing my breakfast, I tidied only my part of the cluttered living room and settled down with a book. The calm didn't last long, however. The doorbell rang. I glanced at the monitor, bracing myself for whatever came next. I was startled to see a group of more than 4 elderly people, familiar faces I knew well, standing in front of my door with visibly upset expressions. Confused, I watched as my mother-in-law hurried to greet them, and they filed into the house one after the other. I was taken aback when one of them sharply addressed me. "I hear you're the wicked woman who doesn't even care for her mother-in-law." It turned out these visitors were my mother-in-law's siblings and their spouses. She had spread false tales about me, accusing me of neglecting her by not feeding her properly and not letting her bathe. As the youngest of 4, she had a large support network, and now, with their spouses included, there were 8 elderly people in my living room, all labeling me as a demon wife deserving of retribution. Their accusations made my heart race with fear. "This is a misunderstanding," I finally managed to say, my voice trembling. But the eldest brother raised his voice, pounding his cane on the floor. "Stop making excuses," he bellowed. The others joined in, demanding that I apologize and reflect on my supposed wrongdoings. Just then, my husband arrived, drawn by the commotion. When my mother-in-law's brother criticized my upbringing, I waited for him to defend me, but instead, he joined in, adding his own criticisms. In that moment, my affection for him vanished. I had always believed my husband to be a kind man, but living with my mother-in-law had shown me the truth. He wasn't kind, he was simply weak, easily swayed by those around him, and unable to stand up to any pressure. During the heated exchange, one of my mother-in-law's brothers even suggested that we get a divorce. To my horror, everyone seemed to agree. My mother-in-law then offered me a so-called second chance, but only if I promised to change and serve both her and my husband better in the future. Trying to hold back tears, her siblings urged me to be grateful, claiming that I would never find a kinder mother-in-law anywhere else. They even decided to implement a rotating schedule, taking turns each week to check if I was keeping up with the housework and attending to my husband and mother-in-law's needs adequately. Once their plans were set, everyone appeared content and left to celebrate with a sushi outing. As they departed, my mother-in-law couldn't resist a parting shot, telling me to ensure the house was clean and the laundry done by the time they returned. Alone in the cluttered living room, I was left to wonder how everything had escalated to this point. Tears began to well up. Our marriage had been happy until my mother-in-law's interference. Now, despite all my efforts, I found myself the subject of complaints from all of them. The tears streamed down my face, a mix of sadness, regret, and anger. A few hours later, my husband and mother-in-law came home. I was still sitting in the disarrayed living room when my mother-in-law smirked at me. "See, we don't need a wife who can't do housework," she sneered. "I told you to clean up earlier, didn't I?" Seemingly tipsy, she demanded that I leave immediately. My husband, grinning, joined in, probably thinking his support would make me comply quietly. But I had reached my limit. I no longer had any desire to do anything for them. "Fine, I'll leave then," I said calmly, standing up. As I turned to leave, I heard my mother-in-law and husband laughing, probably assuming I was bluffing. But their reactions didn't matter to me anymore. I went to my room, packed my things, and left without another word. A week later, my mother-in-law called me, panicked. "Andrew says he has no money." "What does that mean?" she asked frantically. I responded bluntly, "Andrew earns only a third of what I do. I've been covering most of our expenses. The house is in my name, and I'm planning to sell it, so you'll need to leave soon." She thought I was joking until I urged her to check the bank statements in her drawer. There was silence on the other end of the phone as the reality of the situation sank in. Then, the begging started. She pleaded for me to return, saying Andrew was lonely. But I was resolute. "I'm proceeding with a divorce through my lawyer," I told her, ending the call and ignoring her tearful apologies. With the help of my lawyer, I filed for divorce, citing my mother-in-law's unbearable behavior and my husband's lack of support. The divorce was granted quickly, and I even received a small settlement. When I explained the situation to my children, they were supportive, agreeing that the fault lay squarely with my husband and his mother. After the divorce, I sold the house, and my ex-husband and mother-in-law were forced to move out and stay with relatives temporarily. Their stay was short-lived, though, as they soon had to find a small apartment, struggling to make ends meet on his modest income. From what I've heard, they now spend their days blaming each other for their misfortunes. Meanwhile, my ex-husband has been sending frequent messages asking for reconciliation, claiming he's cut ties with his mother. But these messages have become more of a nuisance than anything, and I'm considering blocking him to maintain my peace. Without their constant criticism, I feel liberated. I'm ready to live my life on my own terms, focusing on my own fulfillment and well-being. As an architect, I was used to designing spaces, crafting structures to embody harmony and purpose. But here I was, unexpectedly, in the role of a bride, envisioning my wedding as the most meticulously crafted day of my life. Each detail, from the floral arrangements to the curated playlists, had been planned down to perfection. In my mind, it would unfold like a scene from a romance novel, a celebration where love triumphs over all. My fiancé, Tyler, an engineer with a logical mind that perfectly complemented my creativity, waited for me at the altar. His usual steady smile seemed tense, as if he was carrying an invisible weight. As I walked in the aisle, a sense of unease crept over me. Tyler's gaze held a distance, a look I tried to dismiss as wedding jitters. Then, I caught sight of his mother, Betty, whispering to a guest, her face tinged with a hint of disapproval. When our eyes met, she forced a smile, mouthing, "You look beautiful," though her eyes betrayed her insincerity. My heart sank, but I pushed the feeling aside, focusing on the moment. During the ceremony, when the pastor asked Tyler if he would take me as his wife, he paused. The words "I do" finally came, yet his eyes lacked the warmth I'd always felt from him. In the ring exchange, Betty abruptly stood up, announcing she needed to capture the moment. Her tone felt more cautionary than celebratory. Later, at the reception, she made a remark about my unconventional dress, hinting I was defying tradition. I laughed it off, replying that I saw our wedding as a celebration of love, not of strict customs. Tyler tried to smooth things over, but his words felt heavy, as if carrying a weight of resignation. As we danced our first dance, our bodies were close, yet our spirits felt miles apart. The song that was meant to symbolize our love now seemed like a hollow echo, and when Tyler whispered, "Are you ready for forever?" the vastness between us felt overwhelming. I replied, trying to shake the dark cloud lingering over us. But deep down, I sensed something had already shifted, even as friends and family toasted to our new beginning. When we returned to our cozy home, the place I had once envisioned as our sanctuary, it felt strangely foreboding. The walls that I thought would safeguard our happiness now seemed like the bars of a cage, foreshadowing an uncertain future. Soon after, Betty began her subtle but steady invasion, showing up unannounced, her criticisms filling the spaces I had hoped to keep peaceful. One day, without warning, Betty declared that she would be moving in indefinitely, claiming my cherished reading nook as her own. Shocked, I pulled Tyler aside, my voice trembling. "Tyler, this is our home. Shouldn't we discuss something this big together?" He met my gaze, but the warmth I had once known was gone. "Mom's getting older," he said. "She shouldn't be alone. She needs to be with family." "So, I'm not family." The words escaped before I could stop them, my voice laced with hurt. "That's not what I meant," he replied, his frustration rising. "Mom has done so much for me. I owe her this." "What about what we owe each other?" I pleaded. "We just got married. This should be our time to build something together." But my words seemed to fall on deaf ears. The decision had already been made. Betty moved in, and the love that was supposed to fill our home was replaced with tension and resentment. Every corner I once found peace and felt heavy, occupied by her constant presence. The moments of warmth I dreamed of were slowly replaced by a sense of suffocation, and each day felt like a new challenge in a house that no longer felt like home. I used to share everything with Tyler, but now I found myself not just fighting to save my marriage or reclaim my home, but battling to preserve my identity, dignity, and peace of mind. The question kept echoing in my mind: how did it come to this? How did my life, my choices, become secondary to someone else's whims? What used to be my peaceful reading nook had transformed into a cluttered space filled with Betty's belongings. The kitchen, once a place of warmth and creativity, became a battleground for her constant critiques. And Tyler, the man I thought I'd grow old with, now seemed like a stranger, aligned with the opposition. This was only the beginning. If I thought life had been tough before, I had no idea what was coming. The atmosphere at home grew stifling, oppressive, as if the walls themselves were closing in on me. Amid this escalating tension, I found myself staring at two blue lines on a pregnancy test in my trembling hands. It should have been a moment of joy, a milestone to celebrate, but under the weight of everything, the news of my first pregnancy felt more like an additional burden than a blessing. Standing before the bathroom mirror, my eyes red from holding back tears, I realized that this should have been a moment of excitement. But it had become a heavy weight I wasn't ready for. When I shared the news with Tyler, his reaction was disappointing in its indifference. "Well, that's something," he muttered, barely looking up from his phone before quickly shifting the conversation to some home improvement idea his mother had suggested. Betty, however, embraced my pregnancy as though it were her divine calling. She began to dictate every aspect of my life, what I ate, what I did, and even where I should give birth. Her interference didn't stop with advice. She turned my pregnancy into another arena for her to assert control. "You're eating again," she would remark, eyeing the modest sandwich I prepared. "Shouldn't you be careful about gaining weight during pregnancy?" I tried to remain calm. "This is doctor recommended, Betty." She scoffed. "Doctors these days don't know anything. Back in my day, we knew how to manage pregnancies." As the weeks went on, my energy dwindled, but Betty's demands only escalated. She transformed my home into her kingdom, where I was expected to cook, clean, and cater to her every whim, as though I were a servant, not a pregnant daughter-in-law. "Betty, why haven't you vacuumed the living room yet?" she barked from her self-appointed throne in what used to be my cherished reading nook, now turned into her lair for endless phone scrolling and daytime TV marathons. "I've been feeling really tired today, Betty. The doctor advised me to take it easy," I replied, my voice heavy with exhaustion. "Tiredness during pregnancy isn't an illness, you know," she shot back, her words cold and dismissive. Through all of this, Tyler's silence was deafening. His passive compliance only added fuel to the growing tension. Things finally boiled over during a tense dinner when Betty criticized my choice of baby names. "That's a ridiculous name for a child," she sneered. "You might as well pin a kick me sign on his back for his entire school life." At my breaking point, I snapped. "Enough is enough, Betty. This is my child, and I have a say in how to raise him or her." Her eyes flared with anger, and her voice escalated. Tyler, as always, intervened, not in my favor. "Mom, you're being emotional. She's just giving her opinion," he said, looking between Betty and me, then around the house, which had become my prison. I felt trapped, humiliated, isolated. The reflection in my tarnished wedding ring showed a woman I barely recognized, someone who was losing everything that once defined her. My home, my dignity, and my relentless spirit had all been slowly eroded under the weight of constant conflict. During one of these heated family discussions, Betty, with a cold, triumphant tone, looked me dead in the eyes and declared, "If you can't handle a simple family discussion, maybe you shouldn't be a part of this family." Tyler's silence in that moment was more cutting than any harsh words. It sliced through me, leaving me with a deep, aching emptiness. I realized then that my nightmare wasn't looming on the horizon. It had already consumed me, turning my life into a maze of broken dreams and suffocated cries. I wandered through the house like a ghost, each room echoing with the absence of the warmth they once held. The baby growing inside me became my only beacon of hope, the last bit of joy in a life that was quickly becoming hollow. But even that small solace was under threat. The breaking point came on a cold evening. During one of those dreadful family dinners thick with tension, I had spent hours preparing the meal, bracing myself for Betty's inevitable criticisms. Each of her jabs felt like a sharp sting, each scoff like a slap to the face. I'd grown used to it, but this time her words hit deeper than ever. "You think you're fit to be a mother if you can't even manage a household? What are you going to do with a baby?" she sneered, each word aimed like a piercing attack at my already fragile self-esteem. My hands shook, and tears blurred my vision, but before I could respond, Tyler added to my despair. "Mom has a point. Betty's right, you need to step it up. We're going to be parents soon." That was the last straw. A surge of anger, mixed with years of resentment and humiliation, rushed through me. Step it up," I exclaimed, my voice rising with a fierce intensity I hadn't expected. "I am carrying our child, managing our home, and enduring relentless emotional abuse from your mother, and you're telling me to step it up." Both Tyler and Betty looked stunned by the force of my outburst. In that moment, the reality of my situation hit me full force. The profound isolation, the deep disrespect. It was all laid bare, unyielding, and stark. Every day, I faced the unbearable tension within what was supposed to be the sanctuary of my own home. It had built up like a dormant volcano, simmering beneath the surface until it finally erupted. "I'm done. I can't do this anymore," I declared, my voice breaking under the weight of it all. "I won't raise my child in a place where their mother is treated like nothing. If this is what family is to you, then I want no part of it." With those words, I stood up from the dinner table, leaving Tyler and Betty in stunned silence. I quickly packed a small bag, my hands shaking so violently that I struggled with the simple task of turning the doorknob. It was then that Betty, sensing her last chance to strike, decided to deliver what she thought would be the final blow. "Where do you think you're going? This is Tyler's house, not yours," she sneered. I turned to face her, meeting her gaze with unwavering resolve. "Actually, Betty, this house is mine. I bought it, and I have every right to decide who stays and who leaves." "Don't do this. Let's talk about it," Tyler pleaded, his voice desperate, finally understanding the gravity of the situation. "There's nothing left to talk about," I replied, tears streaming down my face as I opened the door to the cold night outside. As I stepped out into the night, I felt the finality of the moment settle in. The door closing behind me felt like the end of a long, tragic chapter in my life. I started walking, each step away from that house a painful, necessary one. I didn't know where I was headed, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of agency over my own fate. Despite the emotional toll, the icy wind cut through my thin clothes, biting into my skin as sharply as the turmoil inside me. I walked aimlessly, lost in a haze of exhaustion, both physical and emotional, until I neared my parents' house, a sanctuary I desperately needed. Just steps away from safety, my foot caught on an uneven slab of pavement, sending me crashing to the ground. My ankle twisted painfully, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional agony I had been enduring. Limping and tearful, I finally reached my parents' doorstep. Their shocked expressions as they opened the door reflected the gravity of what had happened. This breakdown had been a long overdue fracture in a life already strained by too much pressure. As they hurried me to the hospital, I knew deep down that things couldn't go back to the way they were. I couldn't return to that house, not to Tyler, and certainly not to the oppressive shadow of Betty that had suffocated me for so long. Reaching my breaking point wasn't just the end. It marked the beginning of something new, a harsh but necessary step toward regaining the life that had been slowly stripped away from me. In the sterile hospital room, surrounded by the constant beeping of machines and the cold, unfeeling walls, reality hit hard. My sprained ankle propped up and undergoing checks for any complications from the fall, I experienced a strange blend of relief and fear. My parents stood beside me, their faces etched with concern and quiet anger. They had always sensed something was wrong in my marriage, but now the full extent of its dysfunction was glaringly obvious. "Sweetheart, what are you going to do now?" my mom asked, breaking the heavy silence, her voice heavy with worry. "I don't know, Mom," I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil still swirling inside me. "But what I do know is that I can't go back. Not now, not ever." My dad, who had been pacing the room, paused and turned to face me. "Your mother and I will support whatever decision you make," he said, his voice calm yet heavy with concern. "But you need to think about your future and the future of your child." I nodded, my mind a labyrinth of uncertainty, filled with countless possible paths, each shadowed by doubt, but also touched by the promise of something new, something free. As we spoke, my phone buzzed with a message from Tyler. "Betty, where are you? We need to talk." Without a second thought, I turned off my phone. Whatever Tyler had to say, it was too little, too late. I was done with words. Now, it was time for action. My first decisive step was to pick up the phone and call a family lawyer. With my parents beside me, we laid out the details of divorce proceedings, child custody, and alimony. There was something clinical, even cold, about turning the end of a marriage into legal documents. But it also gave me a sense of power, control over a future I had almost forgotten I could choose for myself. For the first time, I was taking charge of my life, prioritizing my well-being and that of my unborn child. A week later, Tyler and Betty were served with divorce papers. This wasn't just about ending a marriage, it was about reclaiming my independence, about forging a future where I could breathe freely, unencumbered by the shadows of a toxic relationship. Along with the divorce papers, my lawyer filed a notice of eviction against Tyler and Betty from the house that was legally mine. It was a bold move, but necessary. The paperwork also included demands for child support and compensation for the emotional toll I had endured. It was severe, but it was a firm severance of the toxic ties that had held me captive for far too long. When I finally turned my phone back on, it was flooded with messages and missed calls from Tyler. "Betty, please can we talk about this? I didn't realize how bad things had gotten. I'm sorry, Betty. I never wanted any of this to happen. Let's find a way to make it right." For a moment, I hesitated. I was tempted to reply, to hear him out. But then memories of all those nights filled with humiliation, years of emotional neglect, and Betty's ceaseless cruelty came rushing back. Any affection I had once felt for him was buried under the rubble of our shattered marriage. Without another thought, I deleted the messages, erased his number, and blocked him on every social media platform. As far as I was concerned, Tyler was now a chapter of my past, one I was finally ready to close. I knew the road ahead would be hard. Divorce proceedings are never simple, especially when children are involved. But for the first time in ages, I felt a sense of control. The journey ahead would be painful, yes, but it would also be mine to navigate. The darkness was finally behind me, and though the future was uncertain, it held the promise of something better. The courtroom was sterile and cold, its atmosphere heavy with finality. My lawyer sat beside me, exuding calm confidence. Behind me, my parents' support was unwavering. Across the room, Tyler sat, looking defeated, his face a mask of bewilderment. Betty stood beside him, her expression one of indignant disbelief. "All rise," the bailiff called, and Judge Anthony entered. The proceedings unfolded quickly, like a storm on leaves. Lies were exposed, facts and accusations laid bare. Evidence of Betty's emotional abuse and Tyler's neglect was presented. I watched their faces, twisted with shock and perhaps regret, as they saw themselves through the eyes of the law for the first time. The judge turned to Betty. "Miss, you stand accused of emotional abuse and harassment. The evidence against you is overwhelming. How do you plead?" Betty faltered, her usual confidence nowhere to be found. "Your Honor, this has all been taken out of context. I was merely looking out for my son's well-being." The judge, unimpressed, retorted, "It appears your definition of well-being is quite twisted." After a brief but intense deliberation, Judge Anthony rendered the verdict. "The court hereby grants Betty a full divorce from Tyler. Custody of the unborn child will be awarded solely to Betty. Tyler, you are required to pay child support as determined by the state. Mrs. Betty, given the evidence of your emotional abuse and harassment, you are fined $300,000 for your actions." A wave of relief washed over me as the gavel came down. But it was a bittersweet victory. My marriage had ended not in dramatic confrontations, but in the quiet shuffle of legal documents. I was free, but the cost was higher than I had ever imagined. As we exited the courtroom, Tyler approached me, his expression full of confusion and regret. "Betty, I'm so sorry. I never thought we'd end up here." I looked at him, this man I had once believed I would spend my entire life with, and felt nothing but an empty void where love had once resided. "I didn't think so either, Tyler, but here we are. It's too late for apologies now." I turned my back on him and walked away. Betty tried to catch my eye as I passed, perhaps seeking some form of recognition or even forgiveness. But I offered her nothing. She had drained me, and I couldn't afford to give her the satisfaction of knowing she still had any effect on me. As I stepped out of the courthouse, the world felt different, brighter, more vivid, as if I was seeing everything through a new lens. The weight that had held me down for so long had finally been lifted. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one I would write on my own terms. My mother embraced me tightly, tears in her eyes. "You did it, Betty. You're free." I hugged her back, overwhelmed with gratitude. "I couldn't have gone through this without you and Dad." Together, we walked into the light of a new day, ready to start fresh, free from the shadows of the past. "We'll always be here for you," my dad said, joining in the hug, his voice steady and reassuring. "And for your new beginning." That evening, I sat alone in the quiet of my house, the house that was now undeniably mine. For the first time in years, I felt a profound sense of peace. I wasn't lonely, I was alone, and that was enough. The only expectations I needed to meet were my own. A flicker of apprehension remained, of course. I was about to become a single mother, a responsibility that loomed large. But as I rested my hand on my belly, feeling the gentle movements of my unborn child, a sense of calm settled over me. This painful journey had led me to a reckoning, but it had also brought me to a place of survival. The scars from my past remained, but they now told a story of strength, not defeat. I was ready for whatever the future held, not out of necessity, but from a place of choice. And that choice, to steer my own life, to shape my destiny, made all the difference. This was the promise of a new chapter, one written with hope, resilience, and newfound freedom.